Four Corners, Michael 45 RPM Audiophile in Dusseldorf, Mazzy in Seattle, both covered in snow at the moment. Um, and I am Michael from Notre Dame Archived, and our return guest extraordinaire from Houston, Texas, Mr. Baraka P Dub is joining us. Today we will be discussing gear, components, hi-fi systems, lo-fi systems, how to listen to the music that you love. And I think just to start, we can talk about how maybe we can each talk about how we first heard music, what made us interested in listening to it on our own, and how we kind of made the choices to get into the systems and the components that we started our life through. And we can kind of fast forward to where we are now, the choices we've made and why we made those choices. So I can start if you want, if that's okay. The first record I got was a gatefold Michael Jackson laying next to a white tiger on Thriller, and I played it on a plastic toy turntable from Fisher Price. That was when I was 5 years old. That was my first thing I listened to. Just after that, the Beastie Boys and Run DMC came out, so I took that Thriller and tried to do some scratching on it, which didn't work so well. And then the CD boom came through high school, and then the end of high school, when it was in the late 90s, I got a cheap Sony turntable with kind of a stacked multi-rack unit system, like an all-in-one with a 5-disc changer, tape deck, and the turntable on top. I had that all the way until maybe 5 years ago, when I kind of upgraded to a simple turntable system. And in the past 2 years, since getting into Audiophile and learning things from guys like Paul and Mazzy about systems and like the components to make the music sound better, I've upgraded to my current system, which I've had for a couple years. And I think most of us have done system tours on our own channels, showing the system and the signal chain and everything. But that was kind of my rough trajectory. Mazzy, you want to go next?
Sure. Being the senior citizen of the group here, I'll only mention the Beatles once. Okay, that was enough of that. Because even Paul now in his videos, he's finding the Beatle connections and everything. I got those records, and I would be in our living room in my father's console, upright console. I don't even remember the brand, but it was the AM/FM radio, the flip top. It wasn't a long credenza, it was one of the higher ones. And I think my parents got tired from February of 64 till Christmas, Hanukkah of 64. So they gave me for Christmas my first own record player, and it was a Magnavox. It was a kind with a luggage handle on it, but it was a good size, had pivoted speakers that you could take out and pull out that flipped, and it had a pull down record changer. And I would stack records. I would stack records as late as, in some cases, 1974. So 10 years, occasionally when I just wanted to let it go, I'd stack records. And I know audiophile guys are horrified by that. And when a record's perfectly flat and you have the rim, it usually doesn't scuff them up, but that's probably another discussion. And I've been lucky on that. I love that Magnavox. I had it until I would say 1971 or so, or two, when I actually got my first component system on Fillmore. I remember it, Hi-Fi store on Fillmore Street in San Francisco. And it was a Sherwood receiver. I got some Advent speakers, and I think it was, for some reason I'm fuzzy with the turntable. I think it was an early dual, because I remember the higher, or dual, as some people say it's supposedly called, German turntables, has a high dust cover. And I've shown these two records before. I'm just going to bring these out because when I auditioned it in that stereo store, they were playing these two records. I didn't have a lot of jazz records at the time. I think I had Bitches Brew, which I didn't get at all. But this is Stanley Turrentine's Cherry with Milt Jackson. And the opening track, Speedball, I literally, when I bought the stereo, drove down to Columbus and Bay with my buddy, and I bought this record because they were auditioning it. I loved it. CTI, it's got that CTI Creed Taylor slickness, and it sounded great. And they also played the last track on this Pentangle album called Waltz, which is an acoustic folk jazz song that sounds so amazing. So I had that record player for years. I moved out of the house when I was 20, and I remembered my next upgrade. I got a Yamaha separate. The first time I wanted separate components, I got a Yamaha amp and preamp and tuner. And I don't even know why I got a tuner, because I never really played a lot of FM radio, but I think I had the same turntable then. But then I bought these speakers, and my girlfriend almost broke up with me because I spent $600 on a pair of speakers. And it's the speakers that hi-fi audiophiles love to hate, but they were the most popular speaker in the 70s, the JBL 100s. So I wanted to bring a little showcase here. Now, of course, I had the orange grills. It's like you had to get the orange or brown grills in the 1970s. Downstairs in my office, you've seen it on my videos, I bought a pair of refurbished versions of the originals that were refurbished. I bought them about 8 years ago. And a lot of audiophiles hate them. They're a boomy bass reflex speaker. I just love these speakers. They call them a bookshelf speaker, but they're huge. You won't need to put them on stands, but it's got that iconic 70s thing. And of course, in the last 2 years, JBL, who owns Harman Kardon, I think owns JBL, now reissued them, but fixed them. They're supposed to sound really good. I've read some good things about it. I have not heard them myself, but they look exactly the same, but behind the scenes. Anyway, cut to where I am now. I had that system up until 2004, 5, when I renovated my house, and I bought all this Rotel gear, British gear. I got it integrated because I had a whole 5.1 setup, which I really like. I got at the time some B&W speakers, Bauer Wilkins. They're different than these. This is my latest upgrade. And I had my old Dual, a 1986 Dual turntable, which I bought in 86 thinking it was going to be the last turntable I'd ever buy, because I went into the whole CD thing world for like 20 years, had my records in storage, didn't play them. And right after I moved here, I bought my Rega RP8, which I have now. And then just this past year, finally upgraded the phono stage and to an Aria, a Rega. I stayed pretty much with Regas or Regas. And I got an MC Hanna ML cart, which is about I think it's a $1,200 cart. So it's my first MC cartridge. And to me, that's the biggest upgrade I have now. These are B&W 702 S2s. I'm a little sucker for aesthetics. I think I get into the aesthetics. That's a big part of it. So it's not just the sound. And then a guy I know up here in Seattle builds these walnut credenzas and custom things. And I had this here when I moved here, and he built that. And then my transport, which I got just as they were discontinuing them, I got an Oppo 205, which a lot of people think it's one of the better transports for CDs and Blu-rays. And then they literally stopped making them and went out of business, more or less, or stopped that division. But it's a great transport. So that's pretty much Rotel stuff. And we can talk about potential upgrades later as we go on. I have a longer history than you guys, sorry.
We'll also try to link to the specific videos about our systems and components
okay.
Below.
The tours, the room tours, yeah.
Yeah.
Michael.
Paul, you're the guest. Come on, you shouldn't be last. Go, Paul.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't mind. So, Mazzy, you actually hit upon an important point with the JBLs. So for me, the bottom line is, do you yourself like the sound that your system's producing? Don't listen to anyone else. If you like the sound that your system's producing, then go with it.
Absolutely.
But so just my history. So I started out kind of like Michael. I had a Fisher Price plastic turntable that I had a bunch of 45s. The first vinyl piece that I purchased was Van Halen's 1984.
Amazing.
But shortly after that, my parents started buying me cassettes. And then, I had a whole cassette phase, and then it went to a CD phase. I had a realistic component system and realistic, I think they were owned by Radio Shack.
They were.
And so all through my teenage years, I had this realistic component system with the turntable on top, which I really didn't use. And then I went into college. I got another Sony component system. I just fell in love with Sony. When I got my job here at NASA, I bought a full-fledged Sony component system. I had Sony speakers. But my path back to vinyl actually came from digital. And I thought it was really funny, Mazzy, that you mentioned the Oppo. So I got really big into the super audio CD craze. And so I was really big into the 5.1 surround sound. But if you guys recall, around 2003, there was a format war going on. So there was DVD audio. And so here's Led Zeppelin's How the West Was Won. And then, here's Dire Straits on MoFi. So I was really looking for a player that would do DVD audio, super audio CD. It would have the capability of playing DVDs and Blu-rays. And so I started to do a research on a player that was had multi capabilities. So I came across Oppo. And that's where I discovered Music Direct. And so I got a Music Direct catalog with the Oppo BDP 83, which was their first run Blu-ray player. And let me see if I can switch over my background here. Is my background on?
Yep.
Okay, so let's see.
Those are huge components.
Yeah, so in the middle there is my BDP 83, right above my hand here. So that was my path back into analog. So Music Direct hooked me in. So I started to get their catalogs, and I see all these record players, and I see Rega, I see VPI, and for the longest time I've heard, vinyl, the sound of vinyl is great. And I wasn't so sure. So there was a local dealer that actually was selling Regas. So I went to his showroom, I got a demo. And so I thought about it for the longest time, and I actually ordered one from Music Direct, and that's the one that I have here in the picture. And so I am a tweaker by nature. And so that is really what started me tweaking the turntable to try and make it sound better. And over time, I've made it sound better, and there's all kinds of aftermarket tweaks that folks can do to it. And just to talk a little bit more, I also got into Marantz. So again, I like the multi-channel sound. So I wanted something that was capable. So I got a Marantz 8801, which does 11.1, which is more than what's necessary, but it'll do 192 kilohertz 24-bit audio. My speakers are golden ear Tritons, and if you look at the audiophile magazines, they really put their money into advertising. And so there aren't too many dealers here in Houston that sell high-end gear. And so there is one, but the highest high end that they had was Golden Ear, and they had Bauer and Wilkins, but not too many. So I went in, I auditioned the Golden Ear Triton 2s. I liked the sound. I liked the fact that they could go really, really low in bass. And so that's the reason why I purchased those two speakers. So the other bit of Marantz I have is a 8077 7.1 channel amplifier. It's okay, but it is only driving one speaker at this point, which is my center channel speaker. And then I really got into Parasound, and so I have in terms of a phono stage, I have a Parasound JC3 Plus, and then I have a Parasound power amp, which is down there in the bottom part of my rack. So yeah, that's kind of my path back into analog sound. So yeah, I started playing more and more records, and I just fell in love with the overall warmth of the sound. I mean, I haven't forgotten digital. I still do both digital and vinyl, but yeah, it's something about having that physical copy. I love having the big artwork just like anyone else, but yeah, digital has its advantages as well. So
Do you have a home? Do you have a? Is it a home theater bypass through a 2-channel, or is it all an integrated?
so my front end, my Triton 2s are being run by my Parasound power amp.
Got it.
So I got the 8077 Marantz. Initially, it was driving my Tritons, but I wanted to improve the sound. I wanted, better separation, because Parasound does better separation than the multi-channel power amps. So that's why I evolved over to the Parasound. They got a little more power to them. So
I think they're a Bay Area company, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've been sniffing them out because I want a dedicated 2-channel eventually. That's my upgrade, but we can go into that later. My wish list.
Have you ever by any chance listened to 70s equipment from Marantz, Paul?
Yes.
Wow, great.
Yes. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
But Michael, you've got the pinnacle.
What is the pinnacle?
So the pinnacle is, all of your components are voiced for one another.
Right.
They were designed together.
Yeah, exactly. It took me quite some time. It was a long time of learning and bleeding in a way, because I started like you. I remember when I was a very little boy here in Germany, at least, I'm talking now 72, 73, maybe 71, party cellars were high in fashion. Every Saturday in a different party cellar, and my parents were in them, my uncles, my aunts were in them. And when they upgraded their party cellar equipment, there was always something into for me. And so I grabbed it, a record player, a cassette, audio cassette recorder, loudspeakers, cables. And that was my first equipment. And I think that wasn't too bad. I liked it, had a couple of records. Then the next stage has been Schneider Kompaktanlage. It means a company was Schneider, and I had a turntable, a radio, audio cassette in one unit with 2 small boxes. And of course, I thought now I am the king of the world, which I was, of course. And that took me quite some years. And then I think I lost track on vinyl, on music, made finished my school, went to the university, military, and then with working, the love for music came back. But also like you, Paul, I got very, very early into this home cinema 5.1 plus music, which nowadays I have to say wasn't so clever, because it comes with a lot of problems when you really want to hear good music. And then I went back to stereo, went to hi-fi dealers, which did terrible things sometimes, very, very bad suggestions. And then I started to go to conventions, hi-fi conventions. We have quite some here in Germany, higher-end conventions. And I learned more, and I found out that there are smaller companies and they sometimes really do good stuff. Went back to my hi-fi dealer and said, can you get let's say, an amplifier from this company? And I said no, and sometimes he said yes, but he fought against it. And so I tried to get in personal contact over the years to the company I thought suits my my goal the best, because what really helped me was the developing of an idea of what kind of sound I want to have. You know, you can say I'm listening to metal, or I'm listening to jazz or pop music or classical music. That helps. Or you can say, like me, I wanted to be as near as possible to the live experience, because then you develop a taste and an idea which component helps me. But every component makes a difference, and it is very, very difficult to decide, is it a good difference or a bad? Because difference is a difference, but is it good or bad? But if you have an idea where you want to go, that really helps. And so finally, I got my last component in I think it was December, and now I'm only all about room acoustics now, because the rest is done now, and that's a relief. It's a relief.
Well, you should tell everyone what equipment is, what company this is.
I'm all into Einstein now, because what this small company, it's a small company, delivers is unbelievable. You know, I've heard components, for example, an amplifier, it was, I think, 350,000 euros. And we switched him on and then back to the Einstein. And there was no doubt about it. In every aspect, the Einstein blew him out of the water. There was no discussion, even from the hi-fi dealer who wants to sell this. He said, no, okay, you're right, no chance. And but that's, of course, also personal taste and personal choices in a way. But there is the companies, the newspapers, the hi-fi dealers really doesn't make it easy to us, because they of course have all their interests, and it can be a rough ride in that area. It really can be a rough ride, because there are strange developments. For example, these watt monsters, especially in high ends, they want more watt for the huge speakers, which are in 99% of the cases too large for the room they are in. Then you need 500 kilo amplifiers, which has incredible problems to create all this watt for these huge speakers in your too small room. You have a 1 million hi-fi equipment and it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible. And then you sit there and say, what shall I say? No, it's okay. Well, great. Wow, it's huge. Wow, it's very loud, very high volume. And I really have seen and heard strange things in that area. And in my case, I'm just happy to have found my equipment, which makes me happy. And now it's only room acoustics, and I've learned so much and how important it is. And that also, the room acoustic, it doesn't matter what kind of hi-fi equipment you have, room acoustics can improve a lot with small bucks sometimes.
Oh,
So
yeah, absolutely. That's key.
Yeah, everyone tells us we shouldn't have this big flat screen here, or that big glass window behind your gear and everything. But
that's right.
My main system up here, I'm in like an open concept room, and there's a friggin' kitchen right there with stainless steel appliances, huge window there. And I love playing music here. Is it perfect? No. Down in my office, it's a quieter room. It's a dead room. And my JBLs are down there, and the vintage sort of system is there. And I love that, but I love playing music here. And sure, I could do treatments and do things, but this isn't the perfect place. I should have that quote stereo man cave. I don't like to do that. I want to enjoy my life with my music. And my son is out of the house now, so I don't have the situation I know Paul has, with the family right there, that you can't always, and there's a compromise. And I've gone through that as well. When I got my whole system, when I renovated, you know, there's challenges there too. And I went through the 5.1 rat. I was going to show this. This is a, if I only can remember my name, David Crosby. This came with the DVD audio also. Gorgeous. But same way as you, I stopped playing surround music. I only use the surround for movies or TV or something like that. I just, you know, I got rid of my DVDAs, which are, you know, probably really pricey now. And I just play vinyl up here for the most part.
Yeah, I think you bring up a pretty good point, Michael, that, you know, when you go to some of these dealers and you listen to some of their systems, you got to keep in mind that the environment that they're being played in. I mean, just because it works in their environment doesn't mean it's going to work well in your home. And yeah, buying a bigger speaker doesn't mean it's going to sound any better. So yeah, you bring up several important points.
But it does, like, at least for me, whenever I first got into higher fidelity and the more audiophile vinyl, there used to be a shop, it's now gone, in Austin called Sound Gallery, and I went in just looking for some vinyl, and they were playing some stuff. They were actually playing Mingus and I'd never really heard a really good system before, and it wasn't even that great. It was just middle of the road, but just hearing that, I was like, oh, this is what it could sound like. Or there's a possibility for me to have a much larger sonic fidelity in my playback. And actually, it was because of this record. This is on S&P Records. It was cut by Steve Hoffman. This was the first record I heard where that I bought myself, where I was like, a noticeable difference just from the vinyl perspective, from the physical media. And that set me onto the path. And after several hundred hours later of Baraka P Dub videos and Poetry on Plastic and others, here we are now talking to you.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that you're bringing up too is just, you know, sort of like Michael Ledwig's has. I mean, you have that relationship with a dealer, and, you know, the couple of places here in Houston that do sell high end, they will let you bring in your own music. So, you know, for me, that's important. It's like, yeah, they might be playing Diana Krall, but if Diana Krall is not your bag, then bring in a record of your own and say, hey, can I play this? I want to hear what it sounds like.
You should always be able to. And if they say no, you know, walk. I always bring in a
good
couple
hi-fi
of
stores bring the equipment to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, speakers are a good thing. If you can build a relationship, and I think I have with one place, there's two places in Seattle. There's a high-end place. It's more the slick type of dealers with the perfect rooms, and they do, you know, crazy stuff. And, you know, they have 2 or 3 stores in the area. Definitive Audio, it's called. If I can, might as well name names. But Hawthorne Stereo is the guerrilla guys here. These are the real, you go to, you can hang out there. They have good stuff. I mean, they have Rotel and Rega, but they have Focals, and they have, I mean, they go through a lot of things. Plus they do repairs, and I've got befriended their kind of turntable guru, Matt, who is literally come over here. He sets my card up here. He only lives like a few miles away. He's like, come here and set me up here, because as much as I can watch Paul's video on how to set up a card or a turntable, I'm not the guy for that. And he comes and he does what I would take hours for, and I'd probably click off the stylus or something. He does it, and it's brilliant. And it's to build that kind of relationship with these people. Yeah. And if they let you test out speakers that, okay, after a month, or if you don't like them, you know, and then there's a whole thing about, which we may talk about or not, speaker break-in, is it a real thing or not? You know, I believe it is, but.
Yeah, of course.
I've noticed, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
But maybe one thing for room acoustics, because this is maybe a really topic that comes too short. I show you one record, and this is the Nathan Davis Live from pressed by Palace, by the way, Paul, from Sam Records. And this is a live recording. And I am now in a good position because the Volker Bohlmeier from Einstein has the same equipment in his perfect room. And I have the equipment here. And we played it in his perfect room, and we played it here, the same equipment. And on his equipment in his room, Nathan Davis, you hear how he moves 1 or 2 meters from right to left. He does it all the time. And I said, Volker, I don't have that. It's not there. It's not there, not at all. I said, okay, I come. And then he came and said, yeah, right, it's not there. Speaker 1, speaker 2, something for your ears and on the knee. Okay, this, 10 seconds. And now he moves from there to there to there. Room acoustics and tiny bits that changes so much on your listening experience. It's unbelievable.
And speaker,
he's like a drug dealer. I mean, once you felt that sound staging, and for me that's important, is getting that sound stage where you close your eyes and you are in the room with the musician. I mean, to have him come in and make those small tweaks, that's a wonderful relationship. Because I mean, for me, no matter what the price is, you should try and strive for, something that sounds good. But for me, I love the soundstage. I love that 3D imaging that you can get when it's set up correctly.
Yes, right. And that's what we talked about 5.1. And you really can reach 5.1 with a good stereo system.
Yeah,
you can. One example, Andreas Vollenweider is a harp player, and Volker Bohlmeier put on a 70s record from Andreas Vollenweider, and there was a bird, and this bird flew from right behind to front left, and there was no doubt about it. No, it was from right behind me with a stereo system.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. But if you close your eyes, and that was why I smiled when I said it's not there. It's also psychoacoustic, and that's nothing bad. That is something important. Get your speakers away from the wall.
A lot of people are prisoners about their rooms, and they put their speakers on a bookshelf and they think that's it. No. I moved them around. I pulled them out. I mean, they could be out farther. Mine are about 24 inches from front to back, or maybe a little more. So they're somewhat out there. But
the more you put them away from the wall, and that's a lot of
on the speaker. It depends on the speaker. It depends on the speaker, and depends what's behind you. Yeah. You have a solid wall. I don't. I have it opening up, so I have more room there too.
But maybe I think you have to turn your right speaker 2 centimeters.
Well, actually, they are. I know you're joking about that somewhat, or actually serious. They're at my sweet spot, they're adjusted. They look in the photograph like they're facing straight. They're actually toed in, going.
No, they are. I see that.
Somewhat above my head when I have my sweet spot chair right there.
Try it.
Okay. And I have them on spikes. Mine are on spikes.
Michael, I'm curious, with your system, you got all this. Do the aesthetics of it play into it? If the Einstein equipment was more ugly, would you still like it as much?
Yeah.
Physically, yeah.
Oh.
So for you, the main thing for you.
It is. I went to this. I think it was in very early high-end, which is now in Munich. I think it was the Frankfurt Times, and I went to a lot of rooms, Macintosh and Mark Levinson and all of them. And then a small room, Einstein. And I said, what? What? If you can do that in the United States, try it out. I know. Try it out and listen to it. You will see.
You have an all tube. Is it all tube system you have?
Yeah.
And for those of you who are sort of new to the vinyl community or new to any of our channels, there's great in-depth videos that Michael has gone with the designer and owner of Einstein to talk about the components. And if you are curious of any adaptations or tweaking to Rega turntables, Baraka P Dub is your guy. And Mazzy, you've done some videos, I know, on your turntables as well.
I'm not an upgrade guy. I have people that do it for me, you know, like Paul.
By the way, Volker Bohlmeier, he really likes the Rega turntables because he said, you know, what's important is keep it simple and do it intelligent. And that's what those two Rega guys did. It's very intelligent. They kept it simple. And there are some parts you can upgrade. And that's gorgeous, you know. Yeah. I think it's called a spindle in English, which is
sub platter. Sub platter
on plastic. Do it on an handmade.
You can get an engineered. I did that when I had my RP6,
and it gets better. It's great, but the turntable itself is great. The Rega turntable is great.
Some people
out of the box, they do sound great.
Yeah. There are people that have this argument about that too, that they look at it and think, God, it looks so light. It doesn't have the mass of like a VPI or something. But I like
but
that.
How much do you have to pay for Rega? I don't know. How much is it?
Well, it depends.
The base model is the RP1 is like around $400, but you know,
imagine that.
And the RP1 really isn't a bad table for someone just jumping into the hobby. But yeah, like you can go all the way up to the RP10, and the RP10 is about a $4,000 table. But you know, there's different design philosophies. Rega is really going for a low mass energy dissipation, where you know a lot of the other manufacturers are, you know, high mass like a VPI.
Right. I think their sweet spot right now, but it's not a cheap table. It's 2,000 with a cart, 1,500 is the P6. They replaced all the numbers. The RPs are now the Ps. So there's the P6, the P4, the P8, you know. But was it the P3 or something? It's around 500 or 600 or something. I forgot what it was.
Yeah.
Good bang for your buck, seemingly.
Yeah, I think they're good turntables, and they're easy. They're like almost plug and play, you know. If you get the cart through them, because they have, what is it, the head, you can't just replace the heads, the head shells. Paul should talk about that a little more.
Yeah. I can go right into it. So damn phone. 1 second, guys.
All from Neil Armstrong? Jesus Christ.
The satellites are coming down.
Yeah. So, you know, Rega, like a lot of companies, will design for their own turntables. And so their carts are really designed for their tables. To be quite honest, I was not impressed with their cartridges. And so I wanted to go with something else. And so my first cartridge was an Audiophile. And so I went with the 2M black. And to do anyone else's cart, you need to install a spacer. And thankfully Rega recognized that, yeah, not everyone's going to buy our carts. And so you got to get a 2mm spacer, and they're really easy to install.
My guy had an easy time doing it for me.
Yeah, you know, installing a cartridge is, you know, very nerve-wracking the first time you do it, but you know, once you figure it out, it's not that bad at all.
I bent my stylus doing my first one.
Ooh.
Yeah. Actually, from Music Direct, bought my turntable. I have a clear audio concept table, kind of like a out of the box. All you have to do, it comes with the cartridge already installed. But I was setting it up just to be perfect, you know, with the anti-skating and the weight and the tracking and everything. And my hand just slipped, and I knocked the tone arm out of the handle, and it slammed against the platter and just bent it at like a, you know, 45-degree angle. But I told them what happened, and they said, just take the cartridge back. We'll send you a new one. No questions asked.
Wow.
Wow.
That's good customer service. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had an Exact on my RP. I like that Exact. That's one of the standard I forgot, it's like a $400 or $500 Rega cartridge that comes, I don't know if it still comes with the P6 or not. It's an cart, and I really liked it. I literally wore it out because I was playing, especially when I first moved here. I work at home, and anywhere from 2 to 6 hours of records a day for a while, more on weekends. So I get a lot of mileage on my gear. And so I kind of just keep it at that. And I'm not always looking to change very often, but I finally, wore it out. I could have replaced it, but I been wanting to try an MC card. And actually I tried their, I forgot which one it is. There's a MC card that Rega makes, and there was a bad batch, and my guy set it up, and it just like one channel went out, and it was tinny. And I started questioning my system, and sure enough, they found out that at Rega, there was a series of these cards that were rewired either back or something in the card. And I just went back to my a backup exact demo that they loaned me at Hawthorne, until about a year later, I finally went with this, Asian card, Japanese card, and the ML, and I love it,
Mazzy, what is this? What to your ears? What was the difference between the moving magnet and the moving coil?
I just felt my records were even the old ones were, first of all, they were quieter. It wasn't picking up all this, nuance. I felt more mid-range. Some people think MC carts are brighter. I didn't experience that because, some people the people that don't like Bowers and Wilkins feel the B&W sound is a brighter speaker sound, which it is in a way. And of course, in a bright room doesn't, maybe it's not the perfect thing, but, these took literally 100 hours to really warm up. And then of course, is it that they warmed up, or did I get used to them after 100 hours? There's that kind of question that people ask. I don't know. It's just, and things right away, I felt that cart better. When he put it on and we all sat here listening to a couple of records, I can tell right away initially if I'm going to like it or not. Of course, theoretically it's going to get better, but I knew right there, and it was amazing.
That's kind of a good segue. I'm curious for you guys, as you've updated your systems, what is a single piece of gear like a cartridge or a speaker that you've noticed that made a big difference in the sound quality? For me, it was getting my speakers up. My speaker upgrade was massive. That was like the biggest thing I have had.
Yeah, I'd have to say. So, there's a pretty good rule of thumb for anyone buying a system that, when you're buying a system, you set up an overall budget and dedicate 60% of that budget to your speakers. That is where your end result is coming out of your system. That is where you're going to see the biggest bang. So yeah, speakers will make the biggest change to sound. But outside of that, for me, cartridges, anything in your electrical path is going to make a big change to your sound. Mechanical stuff, a little. But yeah, if you're going with a new cart will change the sound of your system.
What about power or cabling? Do you all feel like that is? I kind of changed. I upgraded my system all at once, so I didn't really have too much of an A/B comparison. But
it will make small differences.
If you have
a cartridge change, no.
If everything is perfect in your opinion, then start thinking about power and cables, not before.
When we renovated the house in San Francisco, we had it for 15 years, and we literally added a third story to it. And so the third floor was all new construction, and I had the luxury to run, cable in the walls floors and walls for the surround. And, I had the high-end company run good cables and everything in. But a couple things I had the electrician do, I had dedicated AC plugs, like I think I had 4 different circuits. So I had everything on a different circuit. And if there was a quad, I'd have the left and right were totally separate. Of course, coming here, the house I got here, it was built in the early 80s. Guys flipped it, and it doesn't have the best electric, and I could hear some things. But my buddy, who's a musician, came over, and he's a freak about this turntable. I mean, he swears by the Lin LP12, which is a whole other discussion. I don't have one, but it's one of those, it's like having a Fiat as far as I'm concerned. You always got to tweak it and you get the next upgrade. But he had me unplug my Rotel receiver that was in through like a power conditioner or something and plug it directly in the wall. And I swear to, and everything else goes to the conditioner. I swear to God, I heard the difference in my stereo, just plugging the amplifier directly in the wall instead of with everything else in the power conditioner. What the F, you know? That's that stuff about cables and, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the big things is EMI, RFI type concerns. So cable management, you know, can have impact. So yeah, you really need to pay attention to your cable management, you know, having, I mean, decent shielding around your cables is really an important thing. Now, do you need to spend $300 on a power cable? You know, the opinions are going to differ. I mean, you're going to have audiophiles, you know, all over you saying, yeah, you have to go do this. But no, I mean, I'd say that cabling does affect things, but you know, focus on your components first, like Michael was saying.
Yeah, you know, these real high-enders, these real audiophile high-enders, and they are not talking about $300 for a power cable. They are talking $5,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you know, they're talking that amount of money for one power cord, and then they have an amplifier who has 20 transmitters and 5 transformers behind the transmitters. And if you are in the first semester of physics, you know that can't work. They lose so much detail. This is so ridiculous and stupid. And then they think about power cords. After they make this details into this one, but I need a new power cord, and say, come on, what? You know, this amplifier looks like a monolith from the 23rd century, but it really is strange, really strange market.
So how do you all differentiate between the snake oil, as they say, kind of the gimmicks or the thing they kind of trick you into thinking you need versus what actually is? I mean, for me, it's just like hearing it in person, listening on a friend's system or in a shop and having someone that you trust who's not just being paid by the companies to sell their product. Tell it how it is in real life, in your own ears, in your own head, in person. It's tough.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you firsthand. There is a lot of snake oil in the industry. So you know, there is some truth to what they're saying, like cryogenically treated cables. I mean, yeah, you can get a cable that's cryogenically treated, which makes the whole copper more homogeneous throughout the whole structure. But you know, are you really going to hear that difference in your system? I mean, you really have to have something high end to even, I can't pick it up in my system. I'm going to confess my ears aren't the greatest either. So for me, you know, yeah, while I am curious, I don't want to spend my money that way. But, you know, I know you guys know Ian in Singapore, Hi-Fi News, his channel. So, you know, he's been doing a lot of cartridge reviews. And one of the ones that, you know, he reviewed was this guy here, the Nagaoka MP110, which is a $110 moving magnet cartridge. And this guy outperforms carts that are like 3 or 4 times the price. So, you know, just throwing more money at a problem doesn't mean you're going to get better sound. So that's kind of my opinion on cables. You know, I think Yeah, there are concerns, but yeah, there is a lot of snake oil. I mean, I can't see spending $5,000 on a power cable.
Read hi-fi magazines, read high-end magazines. Every sentence is something like dancing your name. There is nothing with substance. It's only nice words, and doesn't matter. It's always the same words.
Yep.
For hundreds of different equipment parts, always the same words, always the same. It's ridiculous. Only trust your own experience, your own listening habits, and a lot of those people who have their $2 million equipment, they are not into music. They have 20 records. They have 20 records.
Well, that's something that I've always had an issue with. I've gone to people's houses that have really amazing equipment and I don't even see any records or CDs. I don't see music. I don't see physical music. And I'm not against, I'm not personally a streamer. So, and I'm not against that. I'm not against high res audio. I think there's a market for everything. I'm not snooty, obviously, about, you see my CD wall. I play CDs mostly downstairs, even though, you know, I have the Oppo up here. I don't play a lot of CDs up here unless I'm having, you know, people over or, you know, where you don't want to keep changing the record. And that's a great place of doing that. But I don't stream high res stuff. I don't know. You know.
I did it for quite some time. I streamed. I had so many.
Do you stream now?
No.
Just vinyl?
No, just vinyl, completely pure. And then I have to learn that you can't reach vinyl with no chance against, streaming has no chance against vinyl when it really comes to the best way of listening to music. And so I bought a new turntable. It was a Brinkmann balance. And that's why I wasn't so sure what you said about the speakers. And then I got the Einstein turntable, and I have never ever experienced such a huge difference in my whole chain.
Let me ask you this, Michael. Okay, you have this amazing system that I'm in awe of, and I've seen tours of it, and you showcase regularly these great audiophile pressings and releases. Do you play many records, just regular records that are not audiophile pressings as a regular basis?
All that electronic stuff.
Well, okay. So
but you have another problem. Maybe you have seen the Rolling Stones thing, the half-speed masters.
Yeah.
A terrible record really sounds terrible.
I'm not even talking about those. There's a lot of bad reissues and things.
But a terrible record on a good system really sounds terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So look, that's a good transition. So let's talk about the source of the sound itself, the record. I mean, as you all know, like there's a vast range in the process of pressing a record, starting from the recording. And that's why, I mean, once I heard this record, I was like, oh, every other record sonically sounds horrible compared to something that's recorded to tape and cut from the tape and pressed in a good plant on nice virgin vinyl. It's just, and once you hear that, you can't really unhear, you know, once you hear a beautiful mastered all analog cut, it's like, you can't really go back. I mean, maybe yes, you have limitations in your funding and maybe physical space. Like I have physical space issues. I don't have any more room to put more records.
There's always room, Michael. There's always room.
Tell that to my wife.
Yeah, or my wife.
But I mean, like when you put on, this is one of my favorite reissues. This is Stokowski's Rhapsody. The dynamics that you can hear in this versus some cheap digital cut, I don't know. I've never heard one, but it's unmistakable. Like you can never go back. It's like the most beautiful, like you said, Paul, you're in the room the dynamics are so incredible and the stereo field is so wide. It's just, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what some of the records that you all reference in your system. If you have a guest over, if they're like, oh, you're into music, like put on a cool. Show me your system. What does it sound like? What's a record?
I think a mistake there is comparing those records with these new digital records. Like Michael compared those old Rolling Stone records from his friend with these new digital cuts, and they're not going to sound as good. And I just pulled a couple records here because amongst my favorite sounding records, and I'm not always a stickler for first pressings, and I was able to get a lot of first pressings because I bought them as I grew up, although some I got rid of and I had to rebuy. And to get a good original pressing of some things is not always great. But I'm a huge fan of late 60s, early 70s Warner Brothers records. I mean, this is one, obviously you all know A Working Man's Dead. This is An American Beauty in 1970. And I tell you, almost every record I have on Warner Brothers that has the green label sounds amazing. The Van Morrison records, the Randy Newman records, some Ry Cooder, obviously this Grateful Dead record. Obviously, it depends on the music you like. And also there's some records, I don't have one here, but A&M records that had the gold label before they switched in the early 70s. But I was thinking about a couple of records that I always pull out because they sound so damn good. And this is another one that I never see on the VC, but Nils Lofgren. Nils Lofgren, obviously most people know him now for the last 30 years being in the E Street Band, but he is an amazing guitar player that started a band called Grin with his brother. Then he made a bunch of records on A&M Records. And this one, Cry Tough, came out 73 or 4, 76, sorry, a little later, is an incredible sounding, just off the rack record, in my opinion. Now, maybe there are pressings that don't sound as good. This is from 76. It was the first press. And it sounds amazing. Now, maybe at some point, if the tapes are around and you get to Kevin Gray and they put it out now, will it sound better? It's a whole different look. And, all of us at one time or another have talked about Tone Poet and Music Matters. And now they're trying to emulate the tapes, unlike the way the records came out, which maybe were tweaked because of people's turntables and record players at the time. There's just a lot of great sounding records, again, off the rack like that. Of course, the problem is finding clean copies of a 1970s record, and that's the issue for people. You never know, even with great.
May I chime in for a second?
Yeah.
Because today we're talking a bit more about hi-fi equipment. And of course, there are amazing sounding records out there, but we're talking about everything makes a difference, but is the difference an improvement? And I've learned that for me, it has been very important to have a few records which are really, really now. Mm-hmm. And any of this record has its huge advantage. For example, what's very important, you have to have a record where the voice is dead centered. It's very important when you play with your equipment and your boxes or get a new equipment, is it still in the center? And beautiful example for a record where the voice is totally in the center is this one.
Great choice.
Yeah, she is completely centered. So this is a very good record when you have a new equipment or anything changed. Is it still in the center? Or soundstage, very important. This album has an incredible soundstage. Mm-hmm. We get requests, Oscar Peterson. So, and another example, we talked about the 3D, the three-dimensional live recordings where you really think he is next to me. And then I take this one, the Taj Mahal, because this is a very intimate live recording from him in a very small club here in Germany. And this is a perfect record for evaluating how is the depth of my soundstage. Does it still work? Has it improved? So I think that's important when you change your system and want to see, is there an improvement? Is it better? And which aspect is better? Which can be better? So those records helped me a lot with that kind of stuff.
You know, there's a thread. It used to be a pinned thread on the Hoffman forums that Steve Hoffman wrote about a song to play. If you want to set your speakers up, you got to play the Kinks Waterloo Sunset and move your speakers in and out. And as soon as the background of the chorus or something, you have to read goes over your head. That's where your speakers are. Play around, have a friend moving them, play Waterloo Sunset, and there's a point where it sounds a certain way. And I suggest anyone to go to that thread. Maybe we could.
But also a great record to set up your equipment is Walk on the Wild Side from Lou Reed, when the chorus comes and goes back. That's very good to set up your equipment.
I was going to talk. You were showing Oscar Peterson, but this is when I pulled out this morning and re-listened to, just for like the simplicity. This is a quartet, tenor sax, upright bass, drums, and piano. But I'm always blown away by just the simplicity of, like, or even like maybe the Starker, the Bach unaccompanied cello suites, or something just very simple, the Bill Evans trio. Like when you hear the simplicity and the pureness of the instruments, like that's what it's all about for me, of hearing the music. Like Mingus that stuff is a little more complicated, at least the opening track on the record, but you also still hear the dimension and the dynamics of all the instruments and the interplay. And it's, for me, that's the most important thing, is just connecting with the music and like getting moved by the music. Like that's nothing else matters. And so if I can hear that in a clearer way or in a more present way, I'm in.
Yeah, that's really the bottom line, though, is, at the end of the day, it's about the music. And I mean, does that system make you feel better about what you're playing? And I think if anyone hasn't had that three-dimensional soundstage experience, you need to go to a dealer and try and get a dose of it, because for me it's like someone trying to sell me drugs, because the first time I heard a really good system that was giving me that soundstage, I was hooked. And going into my local dealer that was selling the Rega equipment, he played a Beatles record, and I had never heard the Beatles like that before. It was just so enticing, and it's like I have to get that sound.
You did it.
Wow.
But yeah,
it wasn't me.
Finally, it wasn't you.
Yeah, so yeah, everything goes back to the Beatles, right, Mazzy?
Connection.
So yeah, for me, the Janos Starker. So I have the Speaker's Corner version of this, and this is automatically one of the first things I play on my system, because when I play this record, you feel like he is playing for you. You get the ambience of the room that he is playing in. And, there's only a few recordings that really, that I have that really do that so fantastically. But yeah, this is one of the things that I use for my system. But, I think it's important to get several different records and several different types. And I like to check out the full range of everything.
Yeah. Starker's a go-to for me.
The breathing and the feet, when he moves them, you hear everything. Everything.
Is that one open, Paul? Your box set right there? Oh, I see. You have the side open. Does that outshine the Speaker's Corner?
To me, honestly, yeah, I think so. The Speaker's Corner version was 33 RPM. This one is 45 RPM. I would say I prefer the 45 RPM version just a little bit more.
People hate getting up, but it's kind of
yeah. For me, if I can get 45 RPM, I'm going to go for it, because we were talking about moving coil versus moving magnet, and I think for me, the moving coil designs are a little bit better. If it's done right, it's better on data retrieval. And so you get every component, every little piece is going to color your sound in some way. But do you like that coloration?
Right. Like you were saying, Michael, it's different, but is it improved?
Yeah.
And it's subjective, you know, everyone's rooms are different, our ears are different, our tastes are different. I mean, it's so subjective. These are two I had pulled that you talked about. I mean, to me, I would argue, not even argue, I think this is the best jazz album ever made. I think it slightly beats the Miles Davis record. What's the name of that record? Kind of Blue. This is essentially a Miles Davis record, 1957 or 8, Cannonball Adderley. And it's when Cannonball Adderley was in Miles's group. This is a Music Matters Jazz 33, and it's a stunningly beautiful record. And the other one, of course, a lot of you know.
The SRX, Mazzy?
Pardon me?
Is it the SRX version?
This is not the SRX. This is one of the SRXs I didn't get because I probably texted Paul to get it, and he probably got it instead of me.
No, I missed out on that one, but I do have a test press, a Music Matters test press, which is pretty cool because they did, for the test pressings, they did Plastilite on the record label.
Wow. And then this one, of course, just a beautiful record in MoFi. I just love it's a deepness to this record. So if you really want to kind of show your bass, and it's a beautiful.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one to find.
It's Sea Change. Beck is,
or maybe not tough to find. You have to throw down some money to get that now.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the Analog Productions double 45 of that, which I A-B'd with the 33 Music Matters at a friend's house, and it's negligible difference in quality. Yeah. It's incredible,
right? Isn't it? And that's a great entry point. I know this is not that kind of video. That's a great entry point for anyone who is not into jazz. And of course, now this whole Tone Poets and all these reissues now, it's like everyone from all these rock people I know are buying jazz records, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I'm happy they just dropped the 80th anniversary version of that one, because for me, we're all after the audiophile pressings, but I really want to see that music remain in print, because that record to me is so important, and it's such a fantastic record. Yeah. It should remain in print forever.
Yeah, tell everyone out there, buy that record. It just came out yesterday, Friday. This is February 2021. You can get it for, what is it, $25 or
less?
$20.
That's a classic reissue.
Get that, yeah. Be it Blue Note Classics. It's all analog, and just buy it. Just order it right now. Push that button.
Yeah, in a sense, it's a Miles Davis album in all but name, but just all the players on that record are just fantastic, and it came out a year before Kind of Blue.
There you go. It's better than Kind of Blue.
They are both okay.
Any of you, this is kind of an out there thing. We're talking about cabling. Any of you guys do by-wire their speakers at all?
I don't know what that is.
I do it. Let me just to show people what that is. If you can kind of see this, it's not all speakers have posts to do it. It's one of those things that I've tried it with and without. I think I hear the difference, but it's negligible, and it's nothing I would. I think when I first got my system set up in San Francisco, when they hooked it all up, and I bought better cables, not high end, but they set it up that way. So I kind of superstitiously just keep it that way as I've been moving on.
If it ain't broke.
Yeah. Well.
So what other records, did you guys pull anything else to show for demoing?
Yeah, I put out one when I want to improve people who are not so much into hi-fi and music. And I always play this one. First Sight. It's not an audiophile recording, but they know it. They have a reference point, which always helps. So this is a record you always can put on to show how dynamic soundstage and great vinyl can be.
What's the Pink Floyd song that has the lyric "Welcome to the Machine"?
That's on Wish You Were Here.
In my group, whenever we were on tour, our front of house engineer, when we get into the venue and setting up, he would always play that song very loudly through the PA to tune the board and tune the desk to
Okay.
the room. But he would use, like you said, he had this one song that he always used because he knew it
Well,
so well to tune the machine.
Wish You Were Here, that album, the acoustic guitar on the first, was it first or second, the beginning opening of that record sounds so good. You really hear that guitar acoustic playing that David Gilmour is doing on an opening. And that's an incredible sounding record. And even the original Columbia is great. I only have that. I don't have the one, any of the classics, and then I have the remasters. Actually, I thought they sounded pretty darn good. Those Pink Floyd of about 5 years ago. I was happy with them.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's the important thing. I mean, you're going to hear different people say different things. And again, at the end of the day, are you happy with what you bought? That's the important thing. But yeah, when I get a system, though, I like to play different types of music. And again, I try, you do vocal, you do jazz, do classical. I even do some metal, but this one, which is a
Bruder Dorfmeister.
electronic record, Kruder and Dorfmeister from Austria, which Michael is familiar with. This was mastered by Bernie Grundman and pressed at Palace. And
Really?
it just sounds fantastic. And it has just this wonderful stereo ping pong effect at the very beginning. There's a bossa nova song which they've remixed, and it's just fantastic.
I have that. I haven't heard that for years. And when we have to stop now, I want to hear that now. It's really it's Bernie Grant, man. Wow.
Yeah, Bernie cut that record, and you don't see that many electronic records that get the audiophile treatment, and that one got one.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's great
to me,
know.
the best tone poet for me, sound wise, still is the Chet Baker Sings record.
It's my number one.
I think that's fantastic. I think it's temporarily waiting for a repress or about to be, so it's a little hard to get, but don't pay a lot of money for it because it'll be back. But that Chet Baker Sings is the best sounding for me, and it's a reasonable price record.
Going back to Michael, you were talking about Nathan Davis and Sam. This is my favorite Sam release. The Legrand Jazz I also love, but this one has a very special, and I only recently got this, so I've been listening to this a lot lately. Sam is a label that I feel like doesn't get enough credit for their quality. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
In the VC, it gets a lot of credit nowadays, and I really like it that they do. Not in the press, not in the newspapers, but
in the newspaper.
Thanks to you, dude.
In the VC Times.
I think you have all those audiophile record guys and women over your place hanging out, drinking German beer all the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
And other drugs.
Bring us down. I want to just show one more record because this is a fantastic sounding record. And I always try to push this band, LaLuke. They had 3 records on Sub Pop. I literally just got their new record. They're on it. I think, I don't know if it's self-produced. I heard it during from Bandcamp during the pandemic. It arrived. I haven't heard it. They're a duo from, I always want to say Australia or New Zealand, and I hate it when people down under get pissed that I don't know the difference. I can't remember. Harmony vocals, but this is a really beautiful sounding duo, semi-acoustic. I think it's something that Michael, it's a quiet record, but it's a gorgeous record. And this is their 3rd record, I believe, came out 2 years ago. Incredible sounding record. And it's not an audiophile record. It might have been recorded digitally, I don't know, but it sounds incredible on Sub Pop.
So what type of music is that again?
I want to say it's folky, indie's a word we all throw out. What does that mean? It's more of a folky record, acoustic record. I saw them play live in one of the last shows I saw in Seattle before the pandemic lockdown. And they had some electric guitars, but acoustic guitars, just really beautiful. It's a folk duo in a way, but with a little more ambiance. You know, check them out on, you know, stream them or something. But it's pronounced Lalouk, and that album is called Sculptor. Sculptor. I have all 4 of their records now, and I haven't heard the new one, but really I like their harmony vocals. The woman sings more, and the other guy kind of comes in on harmonies, and it's beautiful. I want to say like, you know, like Feist, you know, Feist, the singer.
Okay.
It's kind of goes in that direction, not as poppy as that though. Yeah. Sometimes she gets really poppy for me, but I like her voice or vocal style.
One band I always talk about that some people don't really know is this band called Low.
Oh, yeah.
LOW. And I think their first 5 or 6 records are all analog, recorded, mixed, and mastered, and all on 180 gram. And like, this is the best live sounding band. Rock-based instrumentation, perfect clarity on the live concerts. But their albums are so beautiful. If you've not heard of Low, they're from Minnesota, the north tip of Duluth, Minnesota. But just beautiful, very simple, mellow, sad rock music, kind of. Great.
So something perfect for demoing a system.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, it's just bass, really clean guitar, a simple drums, and 2 vocals. That's it. Beautiful.
Yeah. I held this up at the beginning of this video. I just wanted to show it because this is, if you want the perfect audiophile visual, audiophile design coffee table book, it's this on Faden. But it has everything from vintage gear to advertisements, but beautifully photographed. It's just a fun thing to, you know, look through while you're in your sweet spot, looking at, you know, I love this kind of stuff. I love art books. You know, you find your system in here, maybe. That's where the Lin 12 was in here, but
you probably find the 70s Marantz in there.
Oh, I'm sure, you know, Telefunken stuff, all that, you know.
There's some Brown Dieter Rams in there.
Oh, you know, all the advertisement. Remember all that, this, like the 70s ads you saw in Playboy magazines of women at Hi-Fi for the bachelor crowd. You know,
always a woman on the floor by accident.
Yeah, I mean, this is the ad that got me, and it just seems so misogynist these days, but this got me into stereo gear.
Wow,
Oh.
Slightly overt.
The usual Sunday morning at Norman Meslov's.
Yes, and I use it. This is my brush I use.
Yep, I use the same one. It's great.
I wash my records, I clean my records, I don't use a brush.
Very nice. I've never cleaned a record in my life, washed a record in my life. People hate me for it.
No.
But it works for you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, everyone says you're missing, there's all that stuff in your grooves you're missing. Yeah, some records, yeah, you know, I just don't. Someone's going to comment, how dare I do that, you know, but whatever.
Yeah, again, at the end of the day, it's what makes you happy, you know. But it's funny you mentioned the cleaning. So one of the first things that I learned, so with the Audiophile 2M Black, this is where I learned that, you know, the stylus, the design of the stylus is important in terms of record cleaning. So this one has a nude Shibata stylus. Now, the Shibata stylus is great for detail retrieval, but if you have even the slightest bit of dust or imperfection, you're going to hear pops and clicks like crazy. And so, yeah, these are great carts, but yeah, if you don't have a good clean LP service, you're going to hear it in the end.
But we learned today, Norman Meslov is not so much into cleaning.
Except for my house. Except for my house.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
I think that's good. I don't know. How do you guys feel?
I'm good with it. It was fun.
Maybe we could literally talk all day, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure. The interesting stuff always comes when Norman hits the pause button.
Ooh.
Oh, right. You know, I think the thing is we're trying to get to people. There's a lot of people that just have gear, vintage gear, buy vintage gear, buy what you like. Paul says it the best, and we all agree. Buy what you like. You don't have to chase for, I mean, there are some people that chase for that next best sound. And I mean, I sit on it and then I keep it for 15 years, 20 years. Every once in a while, I might get something. It takes a long time. That's why it's dangerous for me to walk into a hi-fi place, because then I think, I realize what I think I'm missing. And so that's the only good thing about the pandemic. I can't go out and on a Saturday when I have nothing to do, maybe, and just, I'm going to go into and listen to some new speakers or a new amplifier or something. But you asked about upgrades, Mike, and I said that briefly before. I want to get a 2-channel dedicated stereo with a home theater bypass eventually, because home theater is not a big deal for me anymore, but I want just a nice 2-channel. Parasound's a company I was interested in. I want something clean, aesthetically pleasing to me. You know, the synergy matters, but hopefully I can test some gear out. It's always hard to test an amplifier receiver out, but I know people here now, I think that would let me try a couple of things that they have as demos.
I have one quick question for you all. Do you all use headphones through your hi-fi at all?
Not at all.
I use headphones, but not through my hi-fi.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Just when I
Sometimes-
travel, when I used to travel on airplanes, that's it.
Yeah. Not into headphones. You do, Michael?
No, I mean, sometimes if it's late at night or I want to listen to something that maybe
Yeah.
other people might not want to hear in the house.
Other people.
Yeah, or I mean, or just going through a test pressing to check it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll put on headphones just to reference, but I tend to listen to my music in the late afternoon through the early evenings through dinner time, and then it's time for
I
sleep.
did a lot when my son was born. So for the first so many years, I listened to a lot of music in my CD period. Headphones all the time. I had a pair of Sennheisers back then, and that's all I did. Wasn't doing vinyl then. I skipped it. That was my in storage for 20-year period.
Well, we'll link below to some of the system tours and gear of all of our channels,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Thank you for watching and following along. Bye, guys.